Um, right. Can we start off the meeting? Cabinet meeting, Thursday, 11th of May, 2023. And can we have the minutes of last meeting, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. Declarations of interest, members. Anything to declare interest-wise? Thank you. None declared. Public question time. Got maximum 15 minutes of public questions. Written, I don't think we have any. So it's oral questions in public. Yes, please. Could you give your name? Use the microphone. Yes, please. You do, and then give your name and then your question.
Going now? Oh, thank you. Alan Jones, I'm a member of the Committee for Sandown Community Association. I note that quite a lot of discussions has been going on regarding the Dinosaur Isle Browns area of the town. And there is a lot of concern within the town that no real details of what is in mind has come to the town. We know about the original interest from people like Dinosauria and things, and allegedly considerable amount of money being available to invest in the town. It seems to be a lot of people in the town are a bit concerned that the ecological side of it, which we are all happy with for the island, is not necessarily in the best interest of Sandown if it's concentrated in that area. The Bay Area is a, dare I say it, bucket and spade destination. And families come, they are looking for entertainment. And it is, a lot of the shops are extremely worried that what is being planned there is not going to bring visitors to the town, not going to help the businesses, not going to help the hotels. And I would urgently ask the council to reconsider what you have there. I believe there was a meeting earlier in the week where Dinosauria's involvement was resurrected, if you like. And those sort of people, I believe, should be encouraged to come and at least tell the town what you have in mind, along with what you already have in mind, so that the town can make their feelings felt as to what is best for the town.
Can we try and put that into a question such as what is the action, what are actions going to be taken, or are there any formation of ideas that are coming forward for the Culver Parade and Dinosaur Isle area? And I think then we can, if we've got a member that wishes to pick up on that, that's fine. But we can also give you a written response as well. But is that the sort of area that you wish to frame?
Yeah,
the question?
I think it's important that the town is consulted on what the proposals are at an early stage, rather than being presented with a fait accompli before they can comment.
You will realise that some of the information that is gathered at an early stage is confidential and
understood and
business sensitive. So
sure.
We need to take that into consideration. But I'm sure Councillor Bacon would like to come in, reassure that with reference to consultation, which the Isle of Wight Council, as you know, does to death at times. But I'll put that over to Councillor Bacon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Yes, the meeting earlier this week you referred to was a meeting with the 5 of the 6 councillors for the Bay Area. And I think it's fair to say that at the end of the meeting, all made positive comments about the way forward that is set out, not so much in the specific paper we're considering, which just looks at Dinosaur Isle, but the wider plan that appears in Appendix 1 of the papers, which looks at the whole picture, and certainly this being something that is there to benefit Sandown, to fit in with the place plan, and encourages visitors to come to Sandown, to spend a long time in Sandown, and indeed stay in Sandown. Those are all integral parts or key drivers for what is coming forward. I'm going somewhat into what I was going to say in introducing the paper, but there has been a lot of work going into the process up to now, and conversations, discussions with stakeholders to see what is feasible, what is possible, have been part of that. And the next stage that was agreed at the meeting on Tuesday is that there will be a wider, it's not just stakeholders, but a wider meeting with all interested parties, including the community, to take place as soon as possible, at which the various options will be put forward. Dinosauria does keep being mentioned, but they have departed as far as we know. We have undertaken to issue an invite to them if they want to come and put forward proposals. But certainly when speaking with the Mayor of Sandown at the meeting on Tuesday, it's plain that some of the things that were being suggested as part of that proposal, which goes back some years now, conflict totally with the wishes of the community as expressed through certainly Sandown Town Council, if not others. So I think the short answer to your question is, which was essentially, is there going to be involvement and consultation and debate going forward? Yes, certainly there is. I'd like to think that the outline of what is on offer actually answers the needs of, well, many needs, creates many points of interest, but also is something that very much feeds into the interests of the oft used word, but the regeneration of Sandown.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. You wanted to just come in briefly.
Just chip in very, very briefly. Just completely back up what Councillor Bacon has said. And I think it's might be worthwhile just reminding everyone that I presented in the council a couple of years ago now, maybe 2.5 years ago, a 2,000 strong petition from people in Sandown about how valuable Browns was to them as a community asset. So I think the people of Sandown do speak up. They have many ways of doing so. So I just wanted to bring that, remind people about that.
Thank you very much indeed. Any more public questions? No? We'll move on. Thank you. Chairman's announcements, which is agenda item 4. Our usual chairman, Councillor PC Wilcox, is not available this evening. And last I saw her, she was slightly unwell, and so she's not with us. I have no announcements to make on her behalf, or indeed on my behalf. So I'd like to move on to the report of the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Education and Lifelong Skills, which is item 5, post-16 Transport Policy Statement, and the Household Support Fund for, that's item B on that agenda item. Debbie.
Thank you, Chairman. The report before you is the Post-16 Transport Policy Statement 2023, which is for the 23-24 academic year. As a council, we have a statutory duty to consult and publish the policy annually. I would highlight that there is no automatic entitlement to local authority funded home to school or college transport over the age of 16, but the Isle of Wight Council does, however, offer under discretionary power a transport service to enable our post-16 students with a learning difficulty or disability to access a place that is the closest suitable provision for their needs. We've heard already in this meeting quite a bit about consultation, and I can confirm that we wrote to all island secondary schools, the Isle of Wight College, the Special Educational Needs Advisory Service and People Matter, inviting them to share the proposed policy with parents and students. I would draw members' attention to the appendix, which sets out the transport policy statement very clearly. And it also raises some questions that parents may have and students themselves may have. So I believe that everything is set out very clearly, and I would like to go to the recommendation, if I may, Chair, unless there are any questions.
There are two recommendations, one to approve and one not to approve.
There's one recommendation, which is that the Cabinet approves the proposed post-16 Transport Policy Statement 2023 as set out in Appendix 1, which incorporates all elements of the previous years as in 2022 policy. I look for a seconder. Thank you.
Councillor Jarman, seconder. All in favour? Let's move, thank you. Moving to the second paper B.
Thank you. This is the fourth round of the Household Support Fund. And the purpose of this report is to outline the proposed approach. Previous support funds we've managed to make the fund go as far as possible in supporting the widest range of our residents, and Household Support Fund 4 is no different. The detail of this fund is in the recommendation, so I would ask that the chair allows me to actually go through the recommendation, which actually sets out the proposal of the delivery of this funding, because I think that will enable members to make their decision over the recommendation.
I ask members' forbearance on this because obviously we've got people with the agenda items and possibly no papers. I think it's only right and proper that they should be read in full, and so please bear with us.
Thank you. So it is recommended that Cabinet approves the following: the approval of funding of up to £945,390 to be granted to provide food vouchers for up to 12,101 households, as detailed in paragraph 36 of this report. Next, a grant of £100,000 to be held by the Connect for Communities programme to be allocated to schools in the form of a discretionary grant that will enable them to provide financial support to families in need with food, generic uniform, warm clothing, bedding, or wider essentials, as detailed in paragraph 42 of the report. A grant of £150,000 is made available to Citizens Advice for them to financially support over 500 households with fuel bills, provide a telephone signposting service to the Connect for Communities programme, offer an outreach support and advice service in food bank cafes and community pantries, and for the provision of energy efficient white goods where the need is identified. Such grant will be provided on terms to be agreed by the Director of Children's Services and in accordance with the grant criteria set out in paragraph 18 of the report. Funding of £55,000 to be granted to the Footprint Trust to provide advice to households on reducing energy costs and for the provision of energy efficient white goods across the island, as well as items such as hot water tanking insulation, draft excluders, etc. This grant is expected to benefit around 800 households. Grants of £170,000 to be used to expand and support the network of community pantries across the Isle of Wight, offering a more sustainable approach to helping households, as detailed in paragraphs 55 to 58 of the report. Such grants will be provided on terms to be agreed by the Director of Children's Services. A grant of £30,000 to be awarded to the Isle of Wight Food Bank for the purchase of food, energy efficient kitchen appliances, and assisting with the setup of a community garden to grow fresh vegetables, as detailed in paragraph 63 of the report. It is recommended that Cabinet delegates approval to the Director of Children's Services to approve community grant awards to organisations delivering services that meet the criteria of the grant, as set out in paragraph 18 of the report, for targeted financial support for those in need until the 31st of March 2024, in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Education and Lifelong Skills, totalling £500,000. Funding of up to £30,000 be ring-fenced to commission third-party organisations to provide support and advice on budgeting, finances, maximising income, as well as accessing other help, as detailed in paragraph 70 of the report. Such grant will be provided on terms to be agreed by the Director of Children's Services. A grant of £45,000 to Isle of Wight carers, who support around 800 unpaid carers on the island. The grant is to be used to support 200 unpaid carers with clothing, travel, medical equipment, and kitchen appliances. Detail is set out in paragraph 72 of the report. A grant of £50,000 to Age UK for the delivery of hygiene packs to 1,000 pensioners, particularly those struggling with the cost of incontinence products and in rural areas, as detailed in paragraph 74 of the report. It is recommended that Cabinet delegates approval to the Director of Children's Services, in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Education and Lifelong Skills, to agree a fund of £20,000 to be used to assist exceptional and genuine emergency cases with housing costs, in accordance with the DWP grant conditions, as detailed in paragraphs 76 to 80 of the report. And finally, that Cabinet delegates approval to the Director of Children's Services, in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Education and Lifelong Skills, to approve the reallocation of any household support fund underspend to organisations delivering services that meet the criteria. This will ensure that where spend does not meet the approvals set out in this report, the Isle of Wight Council can rapidly adapt the approach to ensure needs are met. And therefore I put the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I've got 2 or 3 members that wish to speak. Councillor Fuller, and then Councillor.
Thank you. I just need to declare an interest in the Household Support Fund paper, in that recommendation 6, there is mention about funding the Footprint Trust, and I'm a member of the Footprint, trustee of the Footprint Trust, so I will not be able to vote on this item. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Paul. And yeah, it's good that you come forward like that. We want to make sure that this is taken forward in the appropriate manner. Councillor Luciani?
I just wanted to second it, but I'm glad to see this is so wide catching, really. So many different areas. Thank you.
Right, okay. Well, it's great to see that we've managed through the endeavours of staff and officers, etc., that we've actually brought some money back to the Isle of Wight to assist those in need. And I think the area that's covered there is quite extraordinary. So that is why I allowed you to read this out. It's an amazing boost for our voluntary sector and indeed our staff to get out there and support island people. Thank you. Right, I'm going to go to the vote. All in favour, please. One abstention. Right, moving on then. I didn't bring the specs, did I? Dementia Hub at Parklands, Cows, Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care and Public Health. Carl.
Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to bring this to Cabinet tonight. It's been quite a long time in the development, really, as this project to develop a dementia hub. So the dementia hub supports on the island currently on the island there are 2,655 people over the age of 65 with dementia, estimated to grow to 3,920 by 2030. That's an increase of about 1,265 people moving forward into the future. So this dementia hub development is something that's quite important. It comes from consultation with lots of different people over different periods of time and organisations. The proposal is to use the Parklands venue in Cowes, and it's been run by the Alzheimer's Cafe. Sorry, I got stuck around my tongue with that. For that, we're going to use a system-wide approach. So we are supporting the building element, and this proposal really enables the Alzheimer's Cafe people to bring together all of the funding to develop the services around that organisation over the next few years. Also, to say that within that building currently is Frontline, who provide debt information. They've been in that building for 30 years. So they're not going to be displaced by this. They're going to be incorporated into the services that we run from there. And I believe that that's a positive thing. All kinds of things will happen within that building, including memory sensory groups, obviously the Alzheimer's Cafe itself. There'll be a gym, there'll be a well-being area for people. There'll be room to rent that to other organisations as well as part of the income for it. And obviously parking and a kitchen is a good thing. So the whole purpose of this venture is to enable people to live longer in their own homes independently, so that people can live a good quality life. And this has come from the community itself. The cost saving to the council, you know, we can't pretend that we're not doing it for specific reasons, but one of the reasons is that the current cost for residential care for people who need advanced is between £1,200 and £2,000 per week. But what we want to do is use that funding in order to enable people to live, as we say, with it, you know, more independently at home. And that all gets brought into the mixture. It'll be a mixture of those who self-fund and those who are funded from people who are using it from local authority fundings. But it also supports, really importantly, the carers, giving time for a little bit of respite and supporting our voluntary carers, of which there are thousands and thousands on the island. So that's really as much as I wanted to say about that. So I'll go to the recommendation. I haven't got my glasses on either. So it's option 1, to approve in principle for a 25-year lease to be awarded to the Alzheimer's CAF Isle of Wight. This commitment from the Isle of Wight Council will enable the Alzheimer's CAF Isle of Wight to progress this essential community-based offer and bring back into use an underutilised council asset. That's the building, and that is the recommendation.
Paul, you're going to second it?
I'm very happy to second that. Thank you.
Anyone wish to make comment? I know the old Parklands and it was buzzing, believe you me. And this is great to see something coming back into operation. And respite is so important to those that give care. And if we can provide even the smallest amount of respite, then to me, that's a step in the right direction. Councillor Luciani?
Having been a dementia trainer for a while, I'm glad to see how many things are actually going to be at this site that people can access. It's brilliant, and I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
Chair, may I just clarify that the respite is short stay day respite. It is not ongoing respite. I just really need to make that clear so that we don't raise the expectations above where they are. That's a few hours. It's an important few hours for people, but I just don't want people to think that we're going to be having an overnight stay accommodation, just so for clarity.
We didn't expect a Parklands hotel. What we expect is giving people just a few moments respite to recharge their batteries. Very, very important. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you very much, Councillor, for bringing this this paper forward. It's been a lot of work to get this far. Can I just clarify, is it the recommendation on paragraph 8 and page 40, option 1? Is that what we're looking at? There's a few sort of options through the paper, but I think that's the one we're looking at, is it? Or page 40. It's not because it's not in the principle, is it? Oh, that's good. It just said in principle, but it's actually approves lease. So sorry, just clarifying. No, thank you. I've got my complete support on this, Councillor.
Would you like to read it out for clarification? Because we've got people externally here, and I want to make sure that every move that we make this evening is actually clarified for those without an agenda and without the recommendations in front of them. Thank you.
Okay. My apologies for that. Yeah. So option 1, the Cabinet approves a 25-year lease for the Parklands Centre to be awarded to the Alzheimer's Cap Isle of Wight for the purpose of developing an Isle of Wight dementia hub, where terms of lease are to be agreed. Delegated authority shall be given to the Director of Adult Social Care and Housing Needs.
We've had a seconder. We're going to the vote. All in favour, please. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just checking to make sure I haven't got lots of recommendations in this one. Yeah. So thank you, Chair. So this is a document which is really about ensuring that we have a framework to be able to deal with the new structure for inspection for the Isle of Wight Council and the CQC inspection of local authorities. This paper enables us to do the work that's necessary and to put in place all of the plans required for that. It also enables to prepare our workforce for what is required of them. It takes account of unpaid carers and care closer to home is included in this. I think it's important to say on the 2nd of January, we have a briefing session for councillors as well, to be held at 3 p.m. So I don't think there's anything else to really say on that. It's just the position in paper. I should say June. Not having the best of day, am I? Oh. June, that is. I'm entitled to a little bit of artistic license. 2nd of June this year. Yes. So the options to support consideration and support for adult social care to promote assurance in line with statutory duties and support the approach proposed to meet the requirements of the new inspection framework.
All in favour?
That's not the
Can we have?
recommendation.
I've
that
got
I
the
have.
recommendation here.
Page 167, item 6.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm not doing very well today. I've read the one on the back. Such is life. The introduction, so recommendation that the introduction of the Care Quality Commission new inspection framework be noted, and that the Cabinet and senior staff fully appraise themselves and promote the direction of assurance, supporting adult social care and housing needs to showcase the positive and reflective impact it has on residents. Strategic and partnership support is required to support the oversight and implementation of assurance.
No. Thank you. Thank you, Carl.
Yeah, I'm not sure why we got to.
Agenda item 7, report of the Cabinet member for climate change, environment, heritage, human resources and legal and democratic services. Dinosaur Isle future provision.
Thought you were nearly going to say demonic services. Huh?
That's tomorrow night.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Obviously, we've had a little bit of a spoiler for what I was going to say in response to the excellent question that came forward earlier. And this is one of those situations where the length of the paper before us is inversely proportional to the amount of work that's gone in to bring it before us. If I may just give a bit of that background, I think it's fair to say, as I was perhaps hinting in the answer to the question, the proposal here and what is I'm asking you to take forward is essentially the tip of an iceberg. Appendix 2 in the paper, Appendix 1, which is on page 225, indicates the wider plan for this area that is in development. And as I say, there's going to be further consultation and information coming forward very soon for residents, and shows that Dinosaur Isle, as I say, is part of a bigger picture involving the Environment Agency, proposals from Swim the White, Art Ecology, Browns, the Wild Heart Trust, Dinosaur Isle itself, and also tying that in with the forthcoming Sandown Place plan. There has been some criticism. I referred to a meeting on Tuesday, and it was levelled, perhaps with some justification there, that there's been a feeling that nothing is being done, or if things are being done, they're being done behind the scenes. Well, I take that on the chin a little, because a lot has been going on, but it has been necessary to work the way we have to, don't like the phrase, but to get our ducks in a row. And I'm afraid there is sometimes a tendency in some parts of the island, if a small part of a bigger idea comes out too early, it gets shot down, or it suffers from misinformation. I think we have seen that a little with some facets of this, certainly in relation to Browns and the lease there. There have been some unfortunate, totally incorrect stories going around, frankly. But I think we are now in a position where we can go over the top, as it were. We've put a snowball together. I'm going metaphor mad here, and we can start rolling that snowball down the hill. And as I say, a first part of that, or a part of that, was the meeting that took place on Tuesday, where the ward councillors for the area, all but one, attended and discussed the plan. It was a nearly 2-hour meeting. It was detailed. It was very interesting, and people now get the picture, get the idea now. I refer to it as a snowball with good reason, because things are developing as we speak. I understand that those looking at the sea pool idea are talking very much to the Environment Agency, and there's a joint element of the project coming forward there. There is, of course, academic interest in elements of the site, which I'll say a little more on in a moment. But that means that I think this can be said that there is now, as part of the proposal, the potential for a marine science centre as part of this bigger picture. Dinosaur Isle is key to this. And some people have asked, why are we spending so much time on that little museum, words to that effect? Well, it has the second best collection of dinosaur fossils, etc., to the Natural History Museum. That quote comes from the Natural History Museum, and I think they know what they're talking about. And of course, they have one of the best collections in the world. And what we have not done to date is to realise the potential of that. And that's what this paper is about. It's about realising the academic potential as a research centre, as a science centre, but also the boost or importance of this location to Sandown and island tourism, and the fact that we have not been doing as good a job as we could have done in relation to making it a commercial operation, both in itself and for the wider effect it can have. So as I say, that's really what this particular paper is looking at, but I just wanted to give a bit of background and context. There was a reference to money in the question. I'm not sure what particularly was being referred to there. I would like to highlight, though, a key part of the paper, as you will have all read, is the MEND funding. The acronym is just what it stands for, has just gone out of my head, but essentially it is grant support to help develop museums. A big application is going in for that. We've had advice and support on that. We are being supported by the Natural History Museum in trying to secure that funding, and it will be key to improving the Dinosaur Isle site itself, and we're very hopeful that it will be successful. So I think I've covered everything there, and I'm being told that it's the Museum and Estate Development Fund. Thank you very much. Correcting everyone today. So that brings me to the recommendation. I just have to flick through my papers to. It's all right. So from page 213, very briefly, the recommendation, and this follows, so I should have mentioned the work that was done by Julia Holbury Associates, a very worthy professional consultancy in relation to museum development and improvement. Dinosaur Isle Museum should remain in Sandown. The council should seek a partner to support the management of the collection. The council should explore the options for a trust to operate the Dinosaur Island Museum. And that's where the Natural History Museum comes in, of course. The Cabinet provides delegated authority for the Director of Neighbourhoods in consultation with the Cabinet member, I won't give him a full title, to enter into further negotiations with the Natural History Museum regarding the management of the collection and the Hampshire Cultural Trust regarding the management of Dinosaur Isle, and that a further report to Cabinet will seek approval for the Council to enter into any such arrangements following the results of the MEND funding application, which will be December this year, and that Democratic Services notes that a further report for the forward plan, or a further report should be placed on the forward plan in that regard. So that is the recommendation, Chair, and I look for a seconder.
Councillor Andre, thank you. Anyone wish to speak? Councillor Jones-Evans.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this paper forward. I just want to sort of say congratulations, which paragraph it's in now, about actually, turning around the fortunes of Dinosaur Isle, and looking like this summer it's actually going to turn a profit or pay for itself at the very least, which has been a difficult situation over some time. So congratulations for taking the bull by the horns and partnering with the Natural History Museum. It's obviously a perfect match, and they can guide us through this process. So wish you all the best of luck, and thank you for taking it on, Councillor Bacon.
Yeah, nothing's ever easy, Julie. You realise that, and I think that this administration, when you and the leader went to Dinosaur Isle and actually picked it up off the floor, and also the morale of the staff out there, you did a damn good thing. And let's hope that we reach a fulfilling and exciting future for it. Councillor Love.
Thank you, Chair. Would the member just tell us a little bit more about the consultation process, please? I'm just looking at on page 221. I was just wondering, I was reading about the consultation. I'd just like to know a little bit more about how the community itself, the local people, are being consulted about this. There's a whole list there of important and valuable, well, interested parties, but I just thought I'd just like to ask a few questions about that.
Thank you, Councillor Love. Well, as I tried to indicate earlier, essentially that is in essence, in the largest part, to come, and that is the next meeting that is coming. There has been involvement of town councillors and ward councillors and other representatives, and they specifically were part of the Julia Holbury meetings, and there has been the ward councillors have been very active in asking me and telling me things, and that, so the consultation to date has really been much more stakeholder and representative based. But the point was made, and made well, at the meeting on Tuesday with those ward members, that there needs to be, the wider picture needs to go out. But I think given the number of high level stakeholders that are involved in this, the Environment Agency, Natural History Museum, and you see the rest of the list there, a number of universities, as I say, it's been piecing things together over a very long period so that we are in a state where there is something that can properly go out to public consideration now. As I say, I take it on the chin that there's been some suggestion that things have been happening behind the scenes, but there have been very good reasons for that, as I think that in itself, that list on page 221 shows why things have been a long time proving in the oven before we put them forward to hopefully bake into a good cake.
Thank you, Chair. My comments weren't meant to be a punch on the chin. I was just wanting to explore that a bit more to reassure the community that there will be further consultation.
I think with that, Carl, it's quite prevalent to the elected members within the community to also do their bit with representation and consultation with their residents. And I think that if you had Councillor Bacon going around Sandown with consultation leaflets in his back pocket, I'll be wondering what the hell he's doing, because quite honestly, that's why we've got local representation. Councillor Andre.
Thank you. Just to add to that, as one of the ward members for Sandown involved, I can say that right from the beginning, I have been involved in this. And as Councillor Bacon rightly said, a huge amount of work has gone into this. But we had to be sure, didn't we, Councillor Bacon, before we brought this paper forward, that we were actually presenting the possible. So that's why we had to go out and make sure that not only Dinosaur Isle is absolutely central to this, but this is very much about the whole of the wider area. And one of my concerns previously was that it was a very piecemeal approach, that we needed to make the whole area a destination. And I'm absolutely delighted with the work that's been done to bring the whole thing together in what I think the phrase was mentioned about sort of turning things around. It is true that we have an incredible collection, and we need to be making the most of it. And I really do feel that the proposals before us will bring that to fruition. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. We've had the recommendations read out in full. I'll move to the vote. All in favour, please. Unanimous, thank you. Move on to the next agenda item.
Chair, just before we get to the next item, I do apologise. I should have made a declaration of interest at the beginning in relation to item 8, the local cycling and walking infrastructure plans. The plans involve a number of parish and town councils. I am a member of St Helens and Brading, St Helens Parish Council and Brading Town Council, St Helens Parish Council, who have financially contributed to the plan they are involved in. I've taken advice from the monitoring officer. I understand that there's an interest. I should declare that it is not a pecuniary interest because it's not my money, obviously, but I just think that should be recorded. I did mention it at the neighbourhood scrutiny meeting as well.
Thank you. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. Well, in view of Councillor Bacon's declaration of interest, then I must also do so, as I'm also a member of St Helens Parish Council, and and also was part of agreeing public money, not my own, to contribute towards some of the costs of the LCWIP that the Isle of Wight Council have carried out. With advice, I obviously have had an interest, but it is not a personal or pecuniary interest as far as I'm concerned. And on that basis, we'll continue with presenting the paper and voting on it. Thank you, Chair. But as with Councillor Bacon, it should be recorded that I have declared that interest.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Councillor Fuller.
Chairman, with respect to 1A, I'm a member of Cowstown Council, who has contributed to this. I'm a member of Northwood Parish Council, who has contributed to it. And I'm chairman of Gurnard Parish Council, who has also contributed to 1A. So I need to put that on record as a declaration of interest for those 3 parish councils. But I'm quite happy with 1B and 1C, whereas I know colleagues aren't. So, so I'm quite happy to support those.
Through the chair, please. I don't mind having a chinwag, but it's a lovely evening and we don't want to sit in here having chinwags. What I would say is, it's no problem. What I would say is that the monitoring officer's heard your declarations. He's satisfied with them, and we'll move on. Would you like to present the paper? And don't call it, what is it, a CL-WIP or something? Yeah. Would you explain it in full to the people outside of this chamber, please, what CL-WIP is? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, LCWIPs are local cycling and walking infrastructure plans, LCWIP, for the second time, local cycling walking infrastructure plans. And they are plans, they are not projects. That's a point to be made from the outset, Chair. The paper before you is for three schemes that we have brought forward. There will be more in due course, but these 3 relate to Cowes, Northwood and Gurnard, East Cowes and Whippingham, and Benbridge, Brading and St Helens. They're the 3 schemes. Paul, what do you want to say? So, sorry, throw me a bit, Paul. The 3 schemes have already been under public consultation, and they deliver the overview plan. They're not creating a project or determining council spend. In fact, they're the opposite. They're to have a plan ready for grant funding bids as and when they become available, or when opportunities arise for those grant funding bids to deliver the scheme. So the plans are to enable future grant funding bids. So there are aspirations in it, Chair. The aspirations are to, as on page 231, part of the aspirations are to double the levels of cycling journeys by 2025. That's a very good aspiration. Increase walking activity, reduce the rate of cyclists killed or seriously injured, and increase the percentage of school children walking to school. Great, great aspiration. Might help some of our other problems, Chair, of parking outside of schools at school pickup time, which creates chaos in some of our communities. So we're hoping that will aid and assist that. And then the other main bits of this, Chair, is that this will form part of the local transport plan, LTP4, which is coming forward shortly. And after this, assuming that we agree these plans and part of the recommendation, which I will read out, Chair, this will be moved forward to be included as a special planning document following further consultations. So if I may, Chair, I'll read out the recommendations because that encompasses that.
Can you hold just a moment?
Sure.
Because I've got really, Councillor Jones-Evans wishes to speak. I'd just like to point out what you've actually referred to, paragraph 13 on page 233, which is provision of affordable housing for island residents, making sure that is part of the planning process, and so it should be, because we need to make sure that access to affordable rented properties is available in all areas. Thank you. Bringing in Councillor Jones-Evans, straight back to you for the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Jordan, for bringing this forward. It's so important to have these plans adopted, so within the planning system, because then we've got oven-ready schemes to go that have been through full consultation with the public as well. If you reflect back on the last few years, we've been very fortunate at having funding from DFT, for instance, the Access Fund. So we've done a lot of work on hearts and minds, behavioural change, but I think everyone would agree it's always been the infrastructure that has been the missing link to actually make people feel safe to get out walking, to get on their bikes. You know, it can be quite hairy out there sometimes, so having dedicated ways through, and particularly in Newport, we had our LCWIP done a couple of years ago, having that cross Newport link. We've got great links out west, West White, and hopefully we'll be improving better when we get the Greenway done. But it's a critical parts of our infrastructure. It's as good as having an A-class road, even better if you like. So totally behind all this. It's the way forward, and we know quite often when government give us if they put out their funding opportunities, they have a tiny window, and it costs a lot of money to put the work and effort into it. So we're doing the work and effort now. We're ready to go. As I like to say in government, it's oven ready, shovel ready. Here you go. Let's have the money. Thank you very much.
Well said.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I wanted to raise the supplementary planning documents. I think that's very, very important as a caveat with it. I think one of the things that has happened in the past is a lot of our policies, strategies do not sort of like interlink with one another. Myself and Councillor Jordan has been working on this, and yes, we are looking forward to making the SBD following consultation will be incorporated within the planning strategy, and any subsequent documents which follows from that, depending on what the outcome from government is following their previous consultation. So again, it's very, very positive, good stuff going into our infrastructure, and it also looks at encouraging people to look at alternatives rather than the private car. If we can incorporate that within new developments when they are built in our communities, then that can only be a good thing, can't it? Thank you.
Absolutely. Move to the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair.
Can I second it? We've got a second yet, have you? I'll second it.
I'll read it. The cap. Yeah, I know, Chair. So the recommendation is that Cabinet approves all 3 LCWIPs in the respective areas of the island outlined, the 3 I mentioned, and to work with key local, regional and national stakeholders to seek funding to deliver the proposed infrastructure improvements. And further, that council staff in concert, I wish I'd made some clarity here, in consultation with the Cabinet member, I will assume, colleagues, that is both Councillor Fuller and myself, but it's a little unclear. So the council staff, in consultation with the Cabinet member, undertake the required public consultation with a view to the council adopting all 3 LCWIPs as supplementary planning documents that can then be used as material consideration in planning decision making. Look for a second.
Councillor Jones-Evans, second. Could we move to vote then? All in favour of the recommendations, please? Unanimous, thank you. Moving forward then, it's Councillor Fuller actually. So item 9A, adoption of the new planning enforcement strategy. Paul.
Thank you very much. Planning enforcement was something that was highlighted as being a real issue within the peer review that took place last May. What we instructed officers to do was to go and have a look at our existing planning enforcement strategy and make it a little bit more fit for purpose. One of the things that we're also looking at doing as well is engaging with local town and parish councils to find out what are the priorities in those areas. I'm just having a look at my phone now, not because I'm rude, but I had another email that was sent to me earlier on today by a resident who has requested action to be taken. I think it is raised within the paper that perhaps planning enforcement is not as visible as it should be. And certainly with respect to the resident that came back to us in his question this afternoon, is that we should be doing more to ensure that happens. I've got a statement here from in respect to that, which says the following. I would note the recommendation within the officer report, but I would like to propose a slight variation so that the leader provides. No, that is the other one. Apologies for that. As you can tell, we have had a lot of emails coming in, but what we're asking for really is for ensuring that the enforcement strategy is clear and supporting, and that we work with town and parish councils. There's some very, very positive things that's happened in the last year or so. We're working very closely with Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council, who has helped to support another post within the planning enforcement team, which has been absolutely fantastic. And we've seen some good things that's coming from that. I know Councillor Jones-Evans, as well as other Newport Parish councillors, have been out with the new officer looking around central Newport to see where things can be improved, where we can look at new priorities for enforcement. And I think that has been really, really positive. It is an absolute pleasure to bring forward the reports so we can move forward and maybe get more town and parish councils contributing to what is a very, very important scheme. I will read the recommendation once I can find it.
I've got Councillor Marshall finding out. I've got Councillor Jones-Evans wishes to come in.
Okay, I will read the recommendation following Julie's response.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Councillor, for bringing this forward. And I just want to mention a colleague of mine on NCCC, Councillor Matt Price, who's been really the forefront of this collaboration with our local council and the Isle of Wight Council. And it's already bearing fruit. You know, the officer in place now. We've already had successes just from having the time to go and look, write letters. It's actually not been that difficult. We're having some really good responses from building owners already. then you get that ripple effect it's hoped for as well. So obviously it's not just all in the town centre, there are some things on the outskirts as well, some bigger issues we're looking at. But the fact that we've got that resource that we can go to and talk about individual cases, which can be quite complex sometimes and have history. But we know how overworked our planning team are. So this just feels you've got some breathing space and can actually make a real difference, because it's what people see out on the street that's really important, and you can make a big difference there. So wholeheartedly behind this, seeing it in action already. And thank you, Councillor Fuller, for being so open to this proposition. And I thank all the planning team as well, and so my colleague, Councillor Price.
Councillor Debbie Andre.
Just to come in briefly, just to say that certainly within my ward, and I know within a lot of wards across the island, planning enforcement is a very high priority. And I'm really pleased to see this planning enforcement strategy coming forward. And I think encouraging greater collaboration between town, parish and community councils is a very positive move, because it's those councils that actually know within their wards very much the specifics of where the focus needs to be. So I'm very much in support of this planning enforcement strategy, and thank those for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Before you come back in, Paul, I'd just like to say that I've been in this a very long time, not just tonight, but throughout the year since 2001. And the bane of our life has been the built environment. And in actual fact, can I say the way that it's gradually, public realm has just gradually slipped away into a situation where we as islanders never really wanted to be. I'll go back. I mean, with when I was joined by Councillor Brodie when he was Councillor Lumley, and we've discussed housing, we've discussed developments, we've discussed public realm and high streets, and our landmark buildings, and those buildings that are landmark because of the state they're in. Now, so I mentioned Jeff because he's one of the Newport councillors that I've spoken with in the past on this, and way back it was. And I don't think there's a councillor that's been elected out of the 39 that doesn't think that enough's enough, and we've really got to get a robust and sustainable enforcement team together to actually crack into it and make our island the island that we and the residents out there want. No one else wished to speak. I'll move to Councillor Fuller, recommendation.
Okay, to read out the recommendation is to adopt the planning enforcement strategy, introduce the approach to delivering planning enforcement that is set out in the strategy, and continue to collaborate with parish, town and community councils about the most appropriate models of delivering additional enforcement capacity, and to delegate to the Cabinet Member for Planning and Enforcement and the Strategic Manager for Planning and Infrastructure Delivery the ability to agree to make minor presentational, consequential and typographical changes to the planning enforcement strategy, as long as any changes do not materially change the content of the strategy agreed by Cabinet. Thank you, Chairman.
May I second that, Chair?
You may, Councillor Jones Evans. And so we've got a seconder, and I'm going to go to the vote. All in favour, please. Please show. Thank you. Moving along, next agenda item is again Newport draft island planning strategy. For those looking through the papers, pages 283 to 292. Paul.
Thank you very much, Chairman. There has been a little bit of progress in this with this report. The difficulty that we have is we are awaiting feedback still from government, because we are still awaiting feedback from government on where the NPPF Levelling Up Act is going. It's very, very difficult for us to make a recommendation to full council until we know more. Now, I know that there are a lot of councillors that have some real issues, and they, what we're hearing back from government is very much supported by most members of the council. but it would be, I think, foolish to make a recommendation to full council at this stage until we know more from what government's saying. We are all incredibly hopeful of what is going to be said, and I would like to put on my record my thanks to the MP for a lot of the work that he has done to make sure that the island gets the focus that the island requires. There's a lot of talk about exceptional circumstances, which Councillor Spink behind me will be fully aware of. And it is important for us to understand how those exceptional circumstances can be brought to the fore and be used to support the island in the future. My recommendation is different from the one that is on the paper, and I will read it out. It says that the leader provides a verbal update to full council on Wednesday, the 17th of May, 2023. This verbal update will be based on the recommendation within the report in front of us and will satisfy the full council motion agreed in January 2023, requiring us, the Cabinet, to inform full council by the end of June 2023 of the Cabinet's approach to taking the draft island planning strategy forward. The update will state our position is that the Cabinet is not bringing the draft IPS forward at this moment in time, as the proposed changes to national planning policy and the transitional arrangements have not yet been confirmed and published by government. As soon as practicable, after the government has done this and we have understood the implications on local plan making, Cabinet will come back to full council setting out how it proposes to progress the draft local plan. Although we all have our fingers crossed on where government's going, it might not be as good as some of us want it to be. So it gives us that wiggle room that we require to be able to say, hey, this is something else we still want to see incorporated. But that gives us the flexibility I think Councillor Spink would want us to have should that matter arise. So that is my proposal as Cabinet member, and I look for a seconder.
Councillor Luciani, thank you. Councillor Spink, of course you will, in time, but I've got to go through the members here, and then we'll bring you in. And I'm looking up at the notice board up there as well to see if I can see anyone who wants to come in. Councillor Jarman.
Yes, so it's interesting to hear the revised proposal. I would, though, urge that rather than doing everything in a serial fashion, that we take all advantage of what is currently a relatively stable NPPF update and a relatively stable levelling up bill, particularly in relation to planning, to make such advances as we can now without delay, so that when that legislation comes out and is published, that we are able to be very quickly at the front of the queue to submit our plan without any further delay. I think there's been a lot of delay along the path for good reasons, and I would hope that we would be very quick when that legislation comes out to do it. So accepting there's some risk with that, I agree that there may be last minute changes which would require some delta amendments to the preparation, that we would make great haste now to do whatever we can to prepare that exceptional circumstances version of the planning strategy so that we're at the front of the queue. So that would be a recommendation. I'm not seeking to change the motion. It's simply a method that I would seek to be adopted, and I hope there would be support for that. We do want to do this as quickly as we can, when we can. We don't want to see undue delay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jarman. I've got some sympathy with what you're saying, but I also know that there's at least 45 other local authorities straining at the leash through the LGA to get some clarity and move the thing forward. Did you want to come back on what I've just said?
55, I understand, Chair, with respect, and probably growing as we speak at this moment. I don't think there are many who are actually pushing forward knowing the changes that are coming. Yes, I think, again, the question is to be as far to the front of that queue as we can, rather than being 55th in the queue. I'd like us to be in the top 5.
we're probably number one in my eyes, and that's the way it's going to go. So don't worry, we'll be kicking back on that. I've got Councillor Bacon wanting to come in. I know that Councillor Spinker's straining at the leash, and I know that we've got Councillor Fuller wants to come in, and Councillor Love. You're all on my list, but I'll bring in Councillor Bacon first, followed by let's go for Councillor Love, and then we'll come back to you, Paul. Councillor Bacon.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. You probably said pretty much what I was going to say. Councillor Fuller I think he's been placed in a very difficult position here, and his recommendation is trying to do the best in a very difficult situation that we've been put in by government. The changes, whatever they turn out to be, and there are many different versions of what they might be, have been promised for some time. Time dates have been missed already, and I believe we're now looking at least a few months before we actually get something concrete. And I very much appreciate Councillor Jarman's request, position, but we're a resource-strapped authority, and he accepts and points out that there is a risk in advancing at this stage when we don't know what the position is. And I think we would be better to keep our powder dry, wait and see, have that definite knowledge of what is coming forward and what is possible and what is not possible before we commit to what will be an awful lot of work and resource, which in the meantime can be directed elsewhere. We don't really want to risk wasted work in this situation. So with that in mind, I'd very much like to support, or indeed second, if that's still open, Councillor Fuller's recommendation.
Councillor Love.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just slightly perturbed that I haven't got a copy of what you've just said in front of me, because I need to absorb things in order to be able to make an informed decision. And that's not here in front of me, and that's the first time I've heard that. So I will be abstaining.
Thank you. And I'd like to think in future that if there is any change to recommendations that are printed and put out in front of cabinet members, at the very least, and indeed the chief exec and our monitoring officer, needs to be clarified. There needs to be an element of clarity there. Right, Councillor Fuller, you want to come back in?
Yes, I want members to know that nobody wants to agree a way forward on the IPS or any subsequent plan more than I do. It is important. We are falling behind with some of our proposals. We've got some, having sat at planning committee meetings over the last year, time and time again, I'm hearing members of our planning committee saying, oh, we should be doing this, we should be doing that, we should have an up-to-date plan to be able to move ourselves forward. And I think, listen to what Councillor Jarman is saying. He's absolutely spot on. We do need to be able to forge ahead on this. I think the planning officers share that concern, and they want to get something out of the door as quickly as they possibly can. So I have no issue at all with that. I'm quite happy to read through the recommendation again, if you would like me to clarify the position for you, Carl. It was not the intention to take this paper to full council, because we just can't. We haven't got enough information yet. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, well, we're still enthusiastic about having a plan moving forward. However, at this moment in time, we can't actually report back to full council on how to progress this, because we've got nowhere we can go at the moment. And that is a real concern that we all have. We want to be firm. And again, a lot of the consultation we did, and when we did the Regulation 18 consultation 2022, it seems like a lifetime ago now, there was so many people that put their feedback into that. What I don't want to do is, if we delay this for too long, is all that consultation that we had could be lost. And I don't want to do that. I want to move forward as quickly as I can. And I want members to understand how important this is moving forward. So I appreciate what members are saying. And I think, you know, on this, Councillor Jarman, Councillor Spink, myself and other cabinet members are really on the same page. We want to give certainty to our local communities on how we move forward. But if you would like me to read the recommendation, apologies for writing that recommendation. There has been discussions going on behind the scenes on that recommendation, but I'm quite happy to reread it if that helps. Would it assist if members had it written out and circulated to them now? It's not perfect, I know, but I beg for your forbearance on this, Chairman.
I think that the timing of getting it to print now, I'm looking at officers, might be a little bit out that window. What you're pointing, can you tell what?
Chair,
Look,
if there's a chance of printing it, we could go carry on with other business.
We will indeed, Councillor Bacon. Thank you for your advice. It's very, very welcome. I know that Councillor Spink wishes to speak. I also know that Councillor Love wishes to come back, and I know that Councillor Jones-Evans is going out of the chamber. Fine. So, Councillor Love, do you want to come back at all?
It's only very, very quick. I mean, I need to be able to absorb it. That's the point that I'm making. I'm not criticising the substance of it at this particular point, because if I'm sat here thinking to myself now, what is the substance of it? Because I haven't got it in front of me. And I need to be sure when I'm making a decision that I understand what that is. So I'm still going to abstain, even if you print it out at this point. I need to be able to absorb it.
So, okay, thank you, Carl. But we're going to get it printed out so that people are aware of what the recommendation is. It's only fair and it's appropriate to do that so that the media that are assembled can have a copy of what the actual recommendation is. And
okay,
also,
Chairman, I've sent that out. I'm quite happy to delay that until the end of the agenda.
That's fine.
So again, if you know, and I don't want members of the cabinet to be considering a paper that they don't know what they're voting on, and I absolutely sympathise with what you're saying, Carl, and I can only apologise for not getting that out to you sooner. Sorry.
Absolutely, Councillor Fuller. I don't want a conversation here. Absolutely. When we have a recommendation here, it's not just the members of this cabinet committee that need to know the recommendation. I've been very clear all evening that it's those that are looking in and those that have actually turned up to witness what's going on and also put their concerns. I want to, without further ado, bring in Councillor Spink. He's been very patient and come in while we're getting our papers up.
Thank you, Chair. I just, at this stage, I'd like to simply endorse what you have said. I think and I don't particularly want to be critical, but as something of an outsider, it must be even worse for the public. It has been extremely confusing the last week or two as to what is going on with the draft plan. So from my point of view, being in opposition, I thought initially it was going to be considered by corporate scrutiny. It was then taken off the corporate scrutiny agenda. I don't know who took it off, and indeed, I wasn't going to raise it, but I will. And
I would like to just clarify the situation with scrutiny in the Isle of Wight Council, or can I call them policy and scrutiny committees? We'd like a bit of policy coming through at some stage, but let's talk about scrutiny. We don't change those agendas. That is down to the chair and the committee members of scrutiny, not to the cabinet, not to the administration, not to the chief executive or to the monitoring officer, unless there's something slightly adrift. So I'll leave it at that. But you know, it's down to scrutiny. They've got a work plan. They've got their agenda. They work on it. Sorry, Councillor Spink.
That's all right. I'm simply saying, as an outsider and trying to represent the public's position, it was to be on corporate scrutiny. it was taken off the agenda by corporate scrutiny. I'm trying to remember what it says in the Constitution. I think the agenda is set by the chair of corporate scrutiny in consultation, I think, with, I think it's the monitoring officer, but I'm not certain of that. And I'd just like to say that at corporate scrutiny, I asked if I could ask a question out of order and was refused that permission. Now, I appreciate that's nothing to do with cabinet, but it is to do with the general point of open and transparent government. So I make the point. I have no objection to the motion or the recommendation, but I would like to see a written copy, and I would like to, that's going to be put before this cabinet, and I would like to reserve my position to comment on that when it is put forward. So that's the situation at the moment. Thank you.
I think that's appropriate. Why not? Everyone should have a copy. Everyone should have a copy of the recommendation. I'm sorry we can't put it up on screen, can we, for those at home or wherever they are. Councillor Andre.
Just for point of clarification, please, Chair, we have now the recommendation before us, but it's my understanding that we have a possible, is there no amendment? Okay, so this is the substantive recommendation. Okay, thank you for bringing that up.
Councillor Jarman.
Yeah, can I think just for the clarity of process here, can we just check with the monitoring officer what the process is for this amendment going forwards now? Because clearly we're within the period before full council and it's not yet been made available to full council or for the public to see or ask questions on, or indeed the other members of full council to see it, obviously because it's only been raised this evening. I don't know what the timelines are for different cut-offs and things. I'm sure he'll be familiar.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Jarman. It is perfectly in order for a motion to be put forward on an agenda item in front of Cabinet. If my understanding of the current position is correct, effectively, Cabinet is being asked to make a decision tonight to the effect that the Cabinet is not bringing the draft IPS forward at this moment in time, as the proposed changes to national planning policy and transformation arrangements have not yet been confirmed and published by the government. As soon as practicable, after the government has done this and the Cabinet have understood the implications on local plan making, the Cabinet will come back to full council setting out how it proposes to progress the draft local plan. And as Councillor Fuller's mentioned earlier, the intention is that the leader at full council will effectively communicate the decision which Cabinet makes tonight and thereby will satisfy the motion of full council in January this year, which was effectively 3 options, one of which was to update on the alternative route. And obviously the intention as set out in the paper from what I can see is that there'll be further intention to inform full council as and when information becomes available. I think that the short point, particularly for members of the public tonight, is that the basic principles of decision making is that clearly you've got to have all the relevant considerations in front of you, and as all members have effectively said tonight, because things are still evolving, which does cause some frustrations all round, that information is not available currently, but clearly the Cabinet does have a paper in front of it in relation to what your position is. So to effectively answer your question, Councillor John, yes, it is in order for the Cabinet to reach such a decision. The deciding issue is really, was it on the agenda to discuss the draft planning strategy and position statement? And the answer is yes. And it isn't an amendment, it's actually a proposal coming forward, which we've just seen, and I've effectively, I think, abridged what you have in front of you, but in terms of just separating out the crucial bit for the cabinet decision tonight, and that is going to be communicated to full council as required. And the intention, as far as I understand from the leader and the administration, is that as soon as information becomes available, it will be formally reported back to full council, so full council can then decide what it wishes to do in the light of that information. Thank you, Chair.
So would this, if passed this evening, I'll add that caveat. So if passed this evening, would this become an amendment to the paper, or would it be put as a separate addendum onto the website for the full council papers?
Through you, Chairman, if Cabinet actually passes the motion which has been outlined, it will be a formal decision of the Cabinet, and therefore would be fully made public, so people can see the particular decision reached tonight. And again, there'll be a repetition of it in terms of informing full council at its annual meeting next week, next Wednesday.
So would it be on the full council papers on the website? Would it be added to those, or would it be a reference to the decision tonight on there? How would people know that it had been done for the full council?
Can I take over now? Otherwise, we're going to. I'm not being rude, but we need to move on a little bit, and I'll bring you back in, Councillor Spank, in a moment. I think that, you know, if we were going through a paper, shall we say, in full council, and there's a motion put forward. Sorry, Councillor Luciano, you want to speak?
I just want to make sure that Councillor Love's had time to take in what he needs to take in.
Councillor Love has the information in front of him. Councillor Love has also indicated that he will abstain, and Councillor Love can come back in if he so wishes to do so.
Okay, I'm happy now that I've read it and I've been able to absorb it. That was the point that I was really making. Now I understand the content. It's just that I am never going to agree to something that is not in front of me in paper.
And Councillor Love, you and I, and there's a lot of others that have fought the fight in this chamber to make sure that we do get amendments and alterations written out in front of us. And sometimes, or sometime in the past, we used to have them printed up and ready to go. And this would be amendments to the motions, etc. And I know some people who are joining us remotely remember when we brought that in to make sure that everybody knew what they were voting for and everybody understood what was going on. This is virtually what I would say the amended motion, the amendment coming forward on the motion or the recommendation. So if we vote on this and it fell, then we'd actually have to go back to the original one, would assume. But I assume that the motion written out here gives a clear path through to full council. It gives a way forward, which I think should be acceptable the most in full council, given the various implications on the levelling up situation at this moment in time and what's going through at central government. Chief Executive wants to come in.
If I may, thank you, Chair, and probably just to provide some more clarity. Cabinet members, you'll be aware that the paper in front of you on page, I haven't got a page number in mind, but under the options for consideration in the report, which come later in the report. So page
290.
Page 290 and page 291, there are a series of options, and option 4 of that is to not agree the recommendations 1 to 3 and to not progress either route
for taking the plan forward and for Cabinet to propose an alternative. What Councillor Fuller has put before you tonight is an alternative option, which unfortunately wasn't presented in paper earlier, but does link to the Cabinet paper. And that alternative option is that you as a Cabinet agree to not bring forward the IPS at this moment in time, and as per the wording set out on Councillor Fuller's words that he shared with you this evening.
Well, I think that's clear. I know you're there, Councillor Spink, and you'll be brought back in very shortly. I think that's clear. We know now. Thank you, Chief Executive, for pointing that out. And thank you, Simon, for nipping around and getting this done. Brilliant. Councillor Spink.
Thank you, Chair. I too am grateful to the Chief Executive Officer for clarifying that. I would ask, and I know as a not a Cabinet member, but as a member of this council, a slight change to the proposed motion. My concern with the proposed motion is simply this, that it includes that the verbal update will be based on the recommendation within the report. Now, the recommendation in the report at page 283 actually sets out a time frame. In fact, what the Chief Executive has clarified, and I'm grateful to her, is that it will be in accordance and recommend the Cabinet will suggest that option, as opposed to recommendation, option at page 294 will be proceeded with at full council. And I would ask for the motion to be amended to reflect that, so there can be no possible confusion at full Cabinet as to what this Cabinet is, at full council as to what this Cabinet is recommending. The motion is wrong. It is not based on the recommendation, which is at page 283. It's based on the options at page 290.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Smith. If I've understood things correctly, I think the easiest way is if I just reiterate the actual main effective decision the Council is making tonight. The Cabinet is being asked by Councillor Fuller to make. And that motion, for the avoidance of doubt, is that the Cabinet is not bringing the draft IPS forward at this moment in time, as the proposed changes of national planning policy and transitional arrangements have not yet been confirmed and published by the government. As soon as practicable, after the government has done this, and the Cabinet have understood the implications on local plan making, the Cabinet will come back to full council setting out how it proposes to progress the draft local plan. Taken on board Councillor Spink's comments, I think that the second element to the motion, I would suggest, and it's a matter for members, not for me, just a simple one sentence, that the leader will update full council accordingly on the 17th of May 2023. But I think Councillor Andre wants to come in.
Well, there's a few want to come in, don't worry. And there's Councillor Jarman was first, then Councillor Andre, and then Councillor Bacon.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I support what the monitoring officer said there. I think his simplification makes it very good. Simply that, you know, there will be a verbal update by the leader, and then starting the second paragraph effectively with the Cabinet is not bringing back, and delete the bit at the beginning. The update will set out, etc. Just beginning of the word the Cabinet. The rest of it, I think, was verbatim read out by the monitoring officer. So I'd support that, and I propose, if I need to, I'm happy to propose that as a formal amendment. But I gather if Councillor Fuller is happy to accept it, we can just take that as read.
Chairman, I'm happy to accept the changes of the wording accordingly.
If it was that easy. Councillor Andre.
I was going to suggest that, because I think the second paragraph that we have, I think is actually fine. It's my understanding from what Councillor Spink has mentioned, is that it's the part about the verbal update. So we could simply just delete on the recommendation. So we could just put this verbal update will be based on the report or on option 4 within the report.
Hold fire, we're going around the houses here.
Because
And I
it's the
don't
verbal
particularly
update
I
that
don't
is in
particularly
question.
like the sound of it. I'm sorry, we've got a monitoring officer that's come up with some wording, which seems to be fairly acceptable. As you know, I'm not an authoritarian and certainly not a dictator. I generally go with the flow, but I'm going to actually stick my foot down in a moment. I'll bring you in a moment, Chief Exec. But what I need to make sure is we've got people that wish to speak. Now, I don't want people who are going to amend the amendment of the amendment of the amendment. What I want is someone who wants to raise a concern. And what we will do then, we will go back to due process and we will start to implement what the monitoring officer has so ably put forward. And then if Councillor Jarman wishes to put an amendment, I don't want you to go and print off another 40 of these, but what we want is some clarity on where you're making the amendment onto one that the monitoring officer has put forward. And then if Councillor Andre wants to amend that as well, we will amend that, and then we will take the amended amendment. This is ridiculous. Taking the amended amendment to say, I know, but I've got to be fair to all here. So, and that's what we're going to have to do, because this is getting spiraling out of control, and it's not going to get out of my control. We've got an amendment by the monitoring officer, by Paul Fuller, that was accepted by Councillor Fuller, which was accepted or virtually accepted. The monitoring officer spouted out, and then we're starting to amend them. Now, hold on, please. I'm going to bring in, I've got 2 or 3 people that wish to speak after I've just blown my top, but I really want to keep us focused on this. So, right. So we had Councillor Andre, we've had Councillor Spink again, have we? Yes, because I'm bringing you in with the committee here. You're in danger.
I'm in danger.
Absolutely.
I would much prefer the amendment to, as Councillor Andre has said, if it's possible, please not to refer to the recommendation, because that's not what we're considering. I would like it to refer to option 37.4, paragraph 37.4, because that's what is the proposal. I see the Chief Executive nodding. I may be a pedantic former lawyer, but I do think it's important that the wording is accurate. Thank you.
I'm a former Parkhurst footballer player and not an inmate, but you know, I'm very pedantic as well. Councillor Baker.
I may also be a pedantic former lawyer, but I also like to keep it as simple as possible. I very much would support Councillor Andre's wording, but simplify it to the best degree, and simply the first line takes out the words recommendation within the, so it reads, this verbal update will be based on the report in front of us. And I can't see that we need to do any more than that.
Members, if I may, I think for clarity, in effect, what you are doing is you are saying we are not taking forward the recommendation published in the paper. We are taking forward an alternative recommendation which is set out in the options. So as a cabinet, you are potentially looking to agree option 4 of the report of the cabinet member 4 and the alternative wording of that, which will be reported verbally to full council next week. In simple terms, I think is what you're trying to achieve.
I'm perfectly happy. You've got the microphone.
Well, I've given my advice. Obviously, it's a matter for members to decide what motion that they wish to put forward. For absolute clarity, when I was advising, effectively the first paragraph was not mentioned because it would have been deleted, but I hear what's been said. But I say it's very much for members to decide what motion.
Right. Did you want to come back, Councillor Jarman? I saw your hand flick.
Sorry, Chair. I proposed an amendment to it. I didn't. I was going to read something out and put that on record, and then we can have something a bit more concrete. I agree with what Councillor Andre and Councillor Bacon were trying to do in terms of simplifying the first part. Shall I read something out which I think is very close to what the monitoring officer said, and hopefully reflects what the chief executive has just put. And then we perhaps
you can read it out, and then we can have a brief chat about it.
I'll read it in full. Simplifying it is always good here and helps. So the leader provides a verbal update to full council on Wednesday the 17th, 2023. I don't think anybody would be in contention with that. Simplifying the next sentence just with 2 extra words. So the verbal update will satisfy the full council motion agreed in January 2023, requiring us, the Cabinet, to inform full council by the end of June 2023 of the Cabinet's approach to taking the draft IPS forward. So that deletes the reference from the words will be based through to front of us and, so it simplifies it. The verbal update will satisfy the council's resolution. And then for the 3rd paragraph, we start with the word the Cabinet is not bringing, which is the option we're selecting. So that's the simplification. I don't think there's much ambiguity left in that. And I think it satisfies, as far as I can see, all the issues that have been raised this evening.
We've got a second to that.
I think everybody's happy with that, Chair, so let's take it.
Thank you for yeah, I know you will, but I'm not opening a can of worms up tonight that's going to infest itself virtually next week to cause us a kickback in full council that we're going to have this debate going on and on and on about one word against one word or one recommendation against another, where we're going to actually leave ourselves wide open in full council. I'd sooner have it here in Cabinet to clarify the situation. I don't want the floodgates to open at full council to discuss a paper when the leader's going to give a verbal update and that's it, and put it to bed on full council evening. Because quite honestly, we will get updates as we go forward, and that's been stated already. So I really don't want this to clog up the wheels of our democratic way forward on Wednesday night at full council. That is why I'm taking the time here and now. Let's get it sorted. We certainly don't want annual council to, how can I say, broadcast the fact that one person says that and one person says this or I or what have you. We need to make sure that what we're taking to full council is going to be taken to full council and allow the leader to just state a fact and move on. Councillor Bacon.
Thank you, Chair. I think we've done that. We've got a form of words that I think does exactly what you said. It's been seconded, so I suggest we move to the vote.
Move to the vote. All in favour? And we all know what we're voting for. I'm looking around the room, making sure that everyone's aware. Thank you. Unanimous. Right. Still looking, no one coming in from outside to ask a question or make comment. Right. Right, moving to Cabinet member announcements now, and I'm going to go from my left around. So, Councillor Debbie Andre, you're first. Any announcements?
And now for the good news. I'm delighted to say that we've just published our holiday activities and food programme annual report. This is I would really encourage people to read. We often get asked, what are we doing for our young children that from those families that are really struggling? And we know there are a lot of families that are really struggling at the moment. And the holiday activity and food programme, just a couple of figures that are highlighted in our annual report. 8,950 hot meals have been provided annually to young people attending the holiday activity and food schemes. At Easter, 1,375 children attending, summer 1,414, and Christmas 897. I have personally visited some of these schemes, and I've seen the way that the children absolutely thrive and blossom, and it's about that sort of social activity. There's so many benefits to it, and I'd like to thank our team of staff that actually work so incredibly hard, and also our activity providers. We have about 10 providers now that come in. We're always looking for more activity providers. And I have to say, this is something that happens across the island. We now have a very wide reach right across the island. Freshwater, Yarmouth, East Cowes, Newport, Cowes, Ventnor, Shanklin, Sandown, Brading, Ryde, so that it's an opportunity for all those families to engage with this programme. So yes, so we have the annual report, and as I say, it's a really good achievement from this council. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Bacon.
Dark skies. It's been a long time, but we are just on the cusp of submitting the final formal application. The International Dark Skies Association have seemed to have a few problems in America. They've ended up restaffing themselves, moving from Arizona to Texas, but we've made full contact with them, full communication. Our initial expression of interest has formally been approved. All we have to do now is get supporting letters from Vectis Astronomical Society and the various town and parish councils who will be within the proposed area. And then I understand the formal application will be submitted by the end of this month. And hopefully we will have a formal Dark Skies accreditation later in the year, which will be a major boost to our shoulder month tourist industry.
Fantastic. You and me, we can light up the stars. Sounds good. Councillor Fuller.
I think you've had enough from me to this evening, so I'm going to not report on anything else. I'm going to transfer to Councillor Jarman. Thank you.
Oh, I was going to say exactly the same thing, Paul. I think people have heard enough of both of us for this evening.
Councillor Jordan, anything inspiring?
Chair, just one quick piece of information. You'll notice, and we're coming on to the forward plan, that there's an EVC, electric vehicle charging point, EVCP, a strategy, consultations leading to a strategy coming out. It's in the forward plan, Chair, but to say that in connection that we have been successful with a grant funding bid of around 330,000 to help us develop that strategy and to pay for a member of staff to help deliver that strategy. Just another piece of good news. Money coming into the council in that way is always good news. Doesn't often get published, but good news for us, Chair.
Worth waiting for that was. Well, you know, can we congratulate the staff who were involved with that? Because, you know, it's no mean feat. Brilliant. Councillor Luciani.
Just one thing, just to remind people that Donna Jones, the Police and Crime Commissioner, has agreed to meet with residents on the 19th of May at 6 o'clock at Ryde Castle Hotel. And I would ask for everybody to come along and have a cup of tea. Thank you.
I believe that event is being sponsored by Town Council, isn't it?
It is, so it's no cost to the Isle of Wight Council. Thank you.
Very much indeed. So that's brilliant news. And residents from across the island can come to Ryde Castle.
It may be in Ryde, but it is actually for the Isle of Wight as well.
Thank you.
I'll just remind my colleague, Councillor Shelley, that she had more recent news where the police are attending as well. Maybe
Oh, yeah,
not.
yeah. So, superintendent and the inspectors. So, yeah, please come along and ask your questions. Thank you.
That's a very good event that you managed to pull off. Well done. I know what it's like. I had the job before you. And it's very difficult to bring people in that position over from Hampshire. Councillor Love.
Nice.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's not the greatest news in the world, but I'm still going to do it and draw attention to it because I'd like people to get their residents to contact Health Watch and the Integrated Care Board. It's come to my attention that the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Integrated Care Board has ended its annual grant to the Community Hearing Aid Maintenance and Support Service on the Isle of Wight. And my issue and concerns about this are that it runs out, that the contract ends at the end of May, which is a very tight time scale. And of course, it's come as a little bit of a surprise to myself. And so I will be saying that I shall be making inquiries about this, and I would encourage people to make their comments known to Health Watch, bearing in mind that this service has been running on the island for 30 years. And I am concerned about an overstretched NHS system where people will have to go directly to them for this kind of support. And that would be the NHS audiology, to say that right, service. So I'm just raising that as an issue so that people can get their heads around that and people be informed as a community.
Carl, can we bring that up at informal cabinet? I think there's more discussion to be had on that. So, you know, that's pretty damning, and we'll leave a lot of people.
I'm very happy to do that, Chair. It has come as a surprise to me that the Integrated Care Board has made that decision, and I don't know about it.
Thank you. Early warning might have been better, I think. Right, for myself, struggle goes on with our housing and temporary accommodation, etc. We've got our empty properties officer now in place, and she's working away. She's working away on an empty property strategy. Why do we need words? Well, we need words because we're looking at the public purse. We've got to make sure that we are with what we do with funding. So that is why we have a strategy for this and a strategy for that, to make sure that we're within guidelines, not operating in guidelines. And I would pay tribute really to our finance staff, although there are times when I pull out what little hair I've got, because of, yes, we've got access to £40 million. Yes, we've got access to it, but the books have got a balance. We've got to get the abacus beads in the right spot so that we are not going down the slippery slope of Croydon, Slough, and Thurrock, etc. And our big thing is on the Isle of Wight. We've been since we came in, and indeed the previous administration, because it's down, a lot of it's down to our officers. Our officers we inherit. They're a good bunch. It's a great team, and they do the work. They do the number crunching. But we have to work within guidelines and try and realise our aspirations. And what I would say about it is that we were talking about throwing the towel in, not so much, can I say, lightheartedly, but we could see there was a mountain of problems with overspends and what have you. We come through that. And that is the reason why I've got to look and see how I can get the best opportunity that I can for our homeless people, our people in temporary accommodation, caravans and bed and breakfast, without tipping us into the abyss of a budget next year where we're not going to be able to climb out. Pay great tribute to Councillor Jarman, who's been at the helm as far as our membership are concerned. But moving back to the housing situation, etc. The other evening at corporate scrutiny, or as I like to call it, corporate policy and scrutiny, so that we can get some policy from it. What I would say is that reference was made that the Isle of Wight Council, why weren't the Isle of Wight Council speaking to one of our registered providers? Well, I can assure you that the registered providers operating on this island are all spoken to by members of our senior management team and in particular our strategic housing manager. I've left the door wide open and invited people to come in and talk to me. I've invited people from the private sector to come and talk to me. I've invited everyone to come and talk to me about housing and what they've got to offer. It's been successful marginally, but there are hopes on the horizon of even more opportunities to come forward. What I would say about it wasn't so much an accusation, it was a remark, I assume, about the Isle of Wight Council not speaking to everyone. If I had a milkman, I'd speak to the milkman. I don't care who I speak to, I don't care where I speak to them, to be quite honest. And neither does any member of the Alliance administration. And what I would say is, when I look across the chamber and I see Martin Oliver prepared to work with me and come forward, I see Ian Ward prepared to do the same, and I see Gary Peace, also from the Conservative group, prepared to do the same. I've got 4 or 5 people from across the chamber working with me on housing. Now, if people across the chamber don't realise what we've got in the way of housing, what we haven't got in the way of housing, what the difficulties are, and where the opportunities are, then they're not trying enough. They've only got to come to the 5th floor. Every day of the week, I think, there's either me, Chris Jarman, or Dora PC Wilcox, or another member of our team in there. And I call the Alliance a team because that's the way we work. To come in and ask. Don't go out. And I know, Louise, you know, great, and you report some fantastic stuff, but we want to give you the good stories, or we want to give you the option of finding out why something isn't quite right, or why, you know, there's an explanation for everything. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm taking a bit of time up to talk about housing, because housing is the main priority which will get us, our people, back into a healthier environment, a more educational friendly environment, and get them back into, if they're out of the job market and circulation, and gives them the opportunity to do so. And that's what we're doing. And I don't think there's one of the 39 members that have been elected that doesn't want that. So I don't want any squabbles about housing when I'm in here. You can have a dig at me, I don't mind that, but always remember that I'm doing my best, the officers are doing their best, and stakeholders out there, such as Sovereign, Southern, Vectus, you name it, they're all out there doing their best to try and provide housing for our people. Not just housing, but housing at island affordable rent. And that's what we've got to think about. I'm going to shut up now, because quite honestly, I didn't want to get too deep into this, but I do get fairly emotional over our housing situation, because last week, 15 children in bed and breakfast. And I get those figures every week, every weekend. Here comes the downer for the weekend. I get the stats. And behind every one of those children And behind the 250 or thereabouts people in temporary accommodation, there's a story, there's a family, there's hardship. And that's what we've got to take away. I mean, you know, I enjoy being laid back about things at times, so I can't be laid back about that. And we have to remember that when we take these things forward. That's my report. 15 children in bed and breakfast last weekend, and our housing teams work their legs off to try and keep those numbers down and try and take them forward. I'll tell you what, if anyone, and I mean about elected members, the door's open, media, the door's open, officers, the door's open, come and talk to me about it. It's a subject that we mustn't forget about. It's high on our priorities as the Alliance. It will remain high on our priorities until we go out the door and seek re-election. If you're going to do that, let me know. But as I say, as far as I'm concerned, it's got to be number one. It's got to be our number one. We've got to crack down and see where we can actually lever some funding to purchase properties as they are, to open and unlock the opportunity with empty properties, to build our own, to go into joint ventures and partnerships. There's lots of things that we can do. And if anyone can come along and, you know, give me the opportunity to start building tomorrow, I'm with you. And if there's anyone who can come to me, and I went to iWalk and I asked anyone who's got any empty properties, deserted pieces of land in their area to come forward. And only one person came forward, Diane Conyers from Fishbourne, who said there was an empty property in Fishbourne Lane. Well, that's a bit, you know, we have to look away from Fishbourne and Kitehill to gauge the properties that we can go for. But that was Diana, and I thank her for that. At least she brought something back. Others didn't. And that was an island-wide, appeal. And how many times I'll get in here and bore everyone stupid, because it's the message that we've got to get out. We can't do it on our own. We need the town and parishes. We need other stakeholders. We need developers, and we need the registered providers. I'm going to stop now and move straight on to the forward plan, I think. Thank you very much indeed. That's end of members' announcement. I think I over announced too much there. Sorry. Consideration of the forward plan. I'm just going to skip through. Has anyone seen any anomalies or anything they wish to raise? No. Thank you very much indeed.
Just formally to remind people of the recommendation we agreed in relation to Dinosaur Isle, that a further report should be placed on the forward plan for December this year.
Thank you. Any other comment? Any? No? Oh, look at anyone. I'm looking down at the paper because I see that there's an agenda item here that we've been waiting all evening for. It's members' question time. Anyone around the committee got a member? Any member in the back row there, Councillor Spink, got a question? Are you sure? You're welcome to come back. I'm looking at notice. I'm looking at those support. No one up there. Councillor Brody's gone. No other councillors there. Okay. Thank you very much. I think it's just after. What's the time? Just after 7. Can't see. Anyway, end of meeting. Thank you. Thank you for turning up. Thank you for listening and your forbearance on my few words. But unfortunately, there's got to be